All right, guys, welcome back to the Hammer and Chisel Performance Podcast. I'm your host, John Heck. Okay, so before we dive into this, I want to kind of set the stage for this episode. Obviously, this podcast is primarily centered around the world of performance and training and nutrition. We've had a lot of lifters, strength coaches, strongman competitors, bodybuilders, and all that. But when I first started this podcast, you guys know one of my main goals was to get a variety of perspectives from the entire world of performance and sports. So I want to get the opportunity to get some coaches and some athletes from the team sport side of things. So in this episode, we probably won't talk at all about training, strength and conditioning, nutrition, any of that stuff. But we are going to talk about things that apply to anyone in the industry who's trying to be a better athlete, a better coach, whatever, because we're going to be talking about what goes into building a championship team, what goes into reaching the absolute elite pinnacle of sports. So to introduce my guest today, we have the offensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, three-time Super Bowl winner, and as I know him, Dad, Coach Andy Heck. Welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here, John. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm fired up to have you here. I'll go ahead. I'll give you the audience a little resume for you. If I miss anything, feel free to jump in. Okay, so you went to Notre Dame, played for the Fighting Irish under Lou Holtz. You were one of the captains of the 1988 National Championship team, a first-round draft pick to the Seattle Seahawks. You had a 12-year career playing in the NFL at offensive tackle, played for the Seahawks, the Chicago Bears, and the then Washington Redskins. When you wrapped up your playing career, jumped into coaching, started coaching at the collegiate level at the University of Virginia, started off as a GA, bumped up to tight ends coach, and then started coaching in the NFL as the assistant offensive line coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, quickly moved up to the offensive line coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, had a remarkably long stint in Jacksonville, where I kind of consider myself from, where I grew up. And then once Andy Reid joined the Kansas City Chiefs, that was 2013.
Yep.
You followed him to Kansas City and have been there ever since. So did I miss anything there?
No. And believe it or not, we're going on our 13th year here in Kansas City.
God, it's just flown by me. It feels like yesterday we were just in Jacksonville, and then I remember just year one with you being with the Chiefs. And I mean, when you took over, they were the worst team in the league. I remember you guys had the first pick of the draft, drafted Eric Fisher, and man.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this, but your brother Charlie said, because he didn't want to leave Jacksonville, he said, we're leaving the second worst team in the NFL to go to the worst team in the NFL. I said, yep, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and I was just watching it from afar. By that time I was off playing it at UNC. But I mean, that's one of the tough things about living in a coaching family is, hey, if you got to be ready to pack up and move potentially. But 3 Super Bowl rings later, I'd say things worked out pretty good. So going through that resume, you left Charlie and I some pretty big shoes to fill. But what is it? Well, first of all, are you wearing the Super Bowl rings by any chance?
No, I didn't put them on tonight. Today we got sized for our AFC Championship ring. So some people refer to it as the loser's ring. Unfortunately, we didn't, win the big game this year, but we do get a consolation prize, and we get a ring for the Lamar Hunt trophy that we won winning the AFC. So we got a couple of those, but no, I keep my rings in a safe. And
do you ever find an occasion to break them out?
Yeah, probably the best occasion to wear one of those things is to another ring ceremony when you're getting awarded.
Yeah, you got a few of those.
We made a trip to the White House last year. Most of the guys, including myself, wore our rings. Yeah, if I ever go to a special NFL event, I plan to wear it.
Got it. Yeah, and obviously this season it was not the finish that you wanted or anyone wanted, so we won't dwell on the ending too much. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was still an absolutely remarkable season. I mean, how many coaches and players go their entire career without ever having the opportunity to get the AFC, the conference championship ring?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we first went and won it, it was my first Super Bowl. I had been in the NFL for 29 years. I mean, very few people are fortunate enough to be in the league. I mean, what's the average for a player? 3 years.
Yeah.
Coaches come and go like nobody's business. But I had been in the league for 29 years and started to think, gosh, maybe this is never going to happen. But then we went, and then we figured out a way, along with a group of incredible players, leaders, the leadership from Coach Reid, how to get over that hump. And then it wasn't just like a matter of if we get there, but almost becomes almost an inevitability. I mean, we had to will ourselves there this year. I don't know, how many of your viewers, follow the Kansas City Chiefs, but this year, I want to say out of our 17 games, probably 14 or 15 of them came down to the very last quarter and were one-score games. I mean, we could just as easily have lost over half of those games and, been looking at, a top 10 pick in the draft this year instead of, getting a chance to go to another Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's part of what made this season so remarkable was it felt like it was kind of just an uphill battle all season. I mean, all the media was talking about was these are not the same Kansas City Chiefs of years past. The offense is in shambles. You're missing all your pieces. Got multiple wide receivers out. But somehow the Kansas City Chiefs just always find a way to make it work. And it feels like as the season goes on, you just get better and better and better and don't even hit stride until, November and December. With these close games, you know, people always say, the commentators say, the Chiefs just find a way to win. And that's part of what makes, a championship DNA team is just finding a way to win. Is there something to that? Because it's like, how do you quantify that? Like, some people say, oh, it's just the circumstances. Oh, the ball bounced this way or another. It could have gone either way, but it doesn't feel like that's the case. It doesn't feel like you won all these games because the ball just bounced in your favor. It does feel like there is some intangible quality about the team that allows you to find a way to win.
No question. It's super difficult to quantify. You know it when you see it. I mean, it's one of those things. And there is something to the old saying that chance favors the prepared. And the other part of it is, guys start to believe. You start doing this thing, winning a game, getting a break. You start to believe. If you think back to our first Denver game this year, we block a field goal. They're going to kick the game-winning walk-off field goal, and the only chance we've got is to block it. Well, the 11 guys that lined up, on that field goal block unit believed they were going to block it, and they did. And it's an amazing thing, and it's a cool thing about team sports. It's one of the reasons that is, as far as team sports go, football is absolutely the best team sport there is, and it's something that I love, because, and Coach Reid says this all the time, my boss, that in a team sport, hey, sometimes it's the defense that's got to lift up the offense. Maybe the offense is having a tough day, or vice versa, or special teams on that day in Denver had to save the day for us. In a team sport, your strengths as a teammate cover up my weaknesses. And there's no better feeling than that. And once you build that, you find that right chemistry. And that's a difficult thing to find. And it's an absolutely essential ingredient to a championship team, is having that right team chemistry. You have to have enough leaders. You can't just have one or even two, like, super strong leaders. You've been on teams that have had that. I think back to when you were in Carolina, working with the Panthers. A guy like Luke Kuechly. I mean, they probably don't make a leader better than him out there. And but you got to have those guys sprinkled around the various units um, to lift the entire team up.
Yeah, and what's particularly remarkable is that you guys have been able to repeat that year after year. You know, sometimes a team they get a group of players who just come together, they click, and then maybe they're together for a year or two, and then people go elsewhere, people retire, people sign, and then the team splits up, and then they don't find that chemistry again. But you guys, you always seem to do it just year after year. And you look at the roster, it's a totally different team every year. How do you find a way to rebuild and reestablish that chemistry every year?
No, you raise a great point. And because there is such great turnover, I mean, even, as you mentioned with our team, I mean, on any NFL team, there's a minimum of 25 to 35% turnover every year, just by nature of, attrition, guys get old, retire, free agency, income new draftees, that sort of thing. So you do have to reestablish every team. Our 22 and 23 team was completely different than our 19 team. All three won championships, and all three had Pat Mahomes at quarterback, but the supporting cast was very different. What remains the same in all of those years, and these years where we've experienced a winning culture, is the leadership from our head coach, our owner, our general manager. So it literally starts at the top. And those guys have created a culture. And then the players have taken it and run with it. So much so that, people, outside observers, they want to be a part of it. So, we may get some free agents come to us that want to be a part of this winning culture. And maybe they haven't, been on a winner like that, but they're hungry for it, and they change their ways a little bit. They've been to the culture that's in place because they want to taste that championship.
Yeah, no doubt. So, two questions here. Number one, what was it like establishing that culture year one? When you guys all came in, you're a new staff. Andy Reid had just taken over. You'd never worked with him before. And then we can get to the next question in a minute, which is how do you, now that you've been established, when does the chemistry rebuild begin and how does that look? But just going back to year one. Okay, so Andy Reid takes over, you get hired. Are you guys getting together and meeting and kind of putting a game plan together? Like, hey, this is how we're going to, introduce ourselves to the team. This is the message we're going to send day one. Like when you're a new staff taking over a terrible team, what's the message you're sending? Like, how are you getting that ball rolling?
Yeah. Um, you know, I think we didn't do exactly what you're talking about. Um, and Coach Reid has had success, wherever he's been, as an assistant, then as a head coach at Philadelphia, where they won so many championship games. Um, you know, it and it can probably look different from one championship culture to another. I don't think there's any one way to skin a cat, but what remains, for example, I suspect, I don't know Coach Belichick, and I've never even had the privilege of being in one of his meetings or, know what that culture is. But I suspect that, his meetings are very different than Coach Reid's meetings in many ways. But ultimately, I think what is absolutely crucial is that there has to be a deep respect for the players. If you want the players to respect you, and therefore, breed this culture, um, then you've got to respect them. They've got to believe that. You've got to love them, care about them, respect them. And that's 100% authentic in Coach Reid. And then any good leader, his charges, his troops, his men, his players are going to start to take on that personality. So we as assistant coaches, I mean, he would say, number one, let your personality show. He says that to our players all the time. Let your personality show. I mean, so be true to yourself, be who you are. I mean, if you think about an Eric Bieniemy, a great football coach, man, there's nobody that has more fire and passion. And I mean, he'll MF guys, he'll, scream, but underneath all that, and the players know this, there's great love and respect for his players. And the ones that can handle being pushed, love him right back. On the other hand, myself, I'm not really a yeller and a screamer. I'm more, uh, reserved in that way. Would consider myself a teacher. Um, and this is an area that I've really grown as a coach in terms of um, taking more of an interest in all things that have to do with my player beyond, even beyond the football field, so that they know that I care about them, that I trust them. So we all kind of feed off of Coach Reid and take his lead in this regard. And, guys, be themselves, be authentic, and be like Coach Reid, and let these guys know you love them. And that seemed to really resonate with our players. They loved it. It was a breath of fresh air in that building, I think. And then we had some good players. And we won some games.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think you hit a nail on the head there with just the authenticity, being a strength coach. I mean, that was very important to us. Hey, like, come in, be you. Like, if you're not the hard ass guy, like, don't come in and try to be a hard ass with the guys. They'll see right through it. Like, be you, be sincere, be genuine, especially in the NFL. Those players are very, very perceptive, right? And they sense bullshit right away. And then, just being the same guy every day, like just being consistent. So just going back to you as a coach and kind of some of the evolution of your own coaching. Well, first of all, here's a question. Do you find that the players, do they have an easier time buying into you because of your success and experience as a player? You played 12 years in the NFL. You walk the talk. Do you think that gains you some immediate respect and trust and buy-in from your guys?
I do think that to a point. I definitely, first of all, don't think that a really good coach or a really good offensive line coach would have to have been, a really good player, or have even played football for that matter. But if you have, and you're a good coach, yeah, I think they're gonna listen to you just a little more. And I think for me, well, and you said it. I mean, these players know they're smart. They can see through BS. And what they want to win and they want to make money. And to do that, they need help. They need coaching. They want to be coached. And if you've got something that'll help them and they believe it, then, they're going to trust you. But the minute that you aren't helping them, and you don't have something for them and they know this guy isn't prepared, this guy knows his stuff. This guy, not only is telling me what to do, but he's telling me why to do it. And he's making a believer out of me. So you got to back that up. So yeah, initially they're going to say, oh, this guy played 12 years. Yeah. You probably know something. And then you got to back it up though. You got to put the work in and you got to give them something that can help them.
No doubt. What are some of the ways you think you've grown and evolved as a coach over all these years?
Well, I mentioned one in that I think I take a greater interest in the outside lives of my players and I communicate with them more outside of the classroom and the football field. Not a whole lot more, but just a little bit goes a long way. Hey, how's your wife doing? Did your dog make it through that surgery okay? Just a little thing here and there. Or, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. I just want you to know even though you're on the practice squad, you're doing a heck of a job. And, this is what I'm hoping to see from you next spring. Just a little like that can buoy a guy and lift him. So showing an interest in my players. And I learned that in a conversation I had with another O-line coach, Juan Castillo. who's a longtime NFL guy. And we were talking about connecting with our players like that. And I took that and tried it and saw immediate results. But I think probably the biggest way is, it's interesting that there's no real schooling for how to become a coach. We don't have to have a certification. We don't have to have a degree. I mean, if you want to coach in college ball, I guess you have to have a college degree. But it doesn't have to be in coaching, which would be in accounting. So there's no handbook, and I'm always amazed at how many situations come up that I'm like, wow, that has never happened before. I did not expect that or see it coming. And you have to be able to handle that situation. It could be a player losing his mind. It could be a player in, uh, distress, for either from an injury or an illness. It could be a player who's down in the dump. Is this something going on outside of the building, or is it because, oh, we just gave a new contract to another guy at his position and now he's, pouting about that. Or it could be somebody said something and that wasn't a team building type thing to say. I mean, there's 1,000 things that come up day in and day out that you've never had to deal with before. And so now, after having, run an O-line room for over 20 years, I've seen a lot more, and I'm better equipped from experience to deal with some of these things as they come up than I was, say, in year 2 or 3. Now, generally speaking, I would say if you have a good head on your shoulders and you know people, and athletes, it's not rocket science. You can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, and you reminded me of this. Joe Ken always had a quote. He'd say, players don't care what you know until they know how much you care. So I'm sure establishing some of those interpersonal relationships with the guys, it just helps build rapport, builds trust, and then they're more bought into you when it comes to coaching them on the field, and then having hard conversations. If you need to get on a guy, if you've already established trust outside of that situation, they're going to know where that's coming from, and they're going to be more receptive to it.
Absolutely. And I would just add to that, these players are all unique individuals. When I was a player, I didn't need someone to ask me about how things were going at home. I did not want that. I wanted, just give me the information that I need. And when I first started coaching, I kind of approached it like, well, this is all I needed, so this is all they need.
Right.
But everybody's so different. And I mean, it seems silly now looking back on it that I wouldn't have pieced that together. But I mean, it's amazing. This guy, he needs hard coaching. This guy needs a soft touch. This guy, do not yell at him during an individual drill, but yell at him all you want over here. So, you got to quickly figure out, what do they respond to and what do they not respond to?
Yeah, for sure. And, as strength coaches, we really got to be immersed in all the different types of guys, because we work with every player on the team. So the way that we have to coach not only individuals, but like position groups, like, okay, we got the linemen coming in to lift. We can run this session one way. We got the DBs and wide receivers coming into the weight room. It's like, we totally need to take a different approach. And then each individual guy within the position group is going to respond better to certain things. So learning which buttons to push, which strings to pull with certain guys, I mean, it's a huge part of the art of coaching, no doubt.
Yeah. And, I mean, I suppose people who haven't been around football can imagine, just what you're talking about, that, a D lineman is going to be very different than an O lineman in terms of their mentality. I mean, they're attacking and this and that, and O linemen are a little more cerebral. I mean, you can have one or two exceptions to the rule, but that's generally the case. And I mean, I myself, I don't know that I could coach D-line. I don't know that that I could handle that group. And by the same token, I bet our defensive line coach would say, I'd be bored out of my mind coaching offensive linemen, just blah, blah, blah. They're just giving them information.
Yeah, for sure. And here's another question just about coaching. I'm curious from your perspective as a position coach in the NFL. When I worked at Troy, my boss Daryl Bauer, he would equate. Um, he talked about the two swords philosophy. So he would relate this back to the samurai. The samurai would carry two swords: the katana, the short sword, the kill sword, and then they'd have a longer, broader sword for blocking, for defense. And the analogy he would make is, as a strength coach, we've got two swords. We've got the short sword that is uh, the art of coaching, the intangibles, being able to communicate and gain respect. And then you've got the long sword, which is the science, the X's and O's, the physiology, the programming. And we wanted to keep both of those swords sharp. And, some strength coaches lean on one more than the other. And there's kind of, sometimes a debate, like which is more important. Is it more important to be extremely well versed in the program, the science, the X's and O's, or is it more important to be just a great leader of men and a communicator and having the intangibles? As a actual position coach or on the football side of things, do you see one being more important than the other? The guy who can relate to the guys, be a great teacher of technique, actual on-field skills, versus the guy who maybe he's not as good at that, but he's brilliant in the film room, brilliant from a game planning perspective.
Um, Man, I love these questions. I would say difficult to say one's more important than another. The very best coaches are going to be outstanding at both. What I mean there is they're going to be, much of my workday, much of a coach's workday is spent away from players. I mean, we're on the field with the players for a little over an hour.
Right.
We're in the classroom with them for 3 to 4 hours in a given day. So there's a lot of classroom time. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is getting your guys to play well on Sunday. So let me back up a second. While there's a limited amount of time that we're actually with our players, classroom and on the field, the rest of our day is spent preparing our lesson plans, but also game planning. So it's critical that you have some people that are really good at that. And the very best coaches are going to be really good at that. And they're going to be really good at reaching their players, giving them that information and making them understand, the details of it and the why, and then getting them to play their tails off on Sunday, to cut it loose and play with an absence of fear. So the very best coaches are going to do both. On any given staff, you're going to have guys that are stronger in the game planning, the X's and O's, and you're going to have guys that are, great at whipping up emotion because it's an emotional game. I'm not a super emotional guy, nor did I play with a lot of emotion. I mean, I just played, and I played hard when I was a player, but I didn't play, you know, with emotion. But I mentioned Eric Bieniemy before. I mean, he had to have been the most fiery competitor you ever saw. If you watch Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he is a fiery competitor, a highly emotional person, but he can also dial it back, be cerebral when he needs to be. I mean, that's why one of the reasons why he's one of the greatest that ever will be. So, if I had to say, I would want a coaching staff full of people that got the most out of their players. They reached them and they brought them to Sunday in a mental state that they were prepared to go whip some ass.
Yeah, and I think I agree. And I think ultimately that's how we would see it as strength coaches. Like, we, of course, we want to be extremely well versed in the science and the X's and O's, but it might be more important to be a great culture setter and just to instill toughness and discipline into these guys and just instill a work ethic and get these guys to the football coaches now in a state where they're coachable, they're tough, they're in great shape, regardless of the specifics of what we did in training. But you mentioned some of the stuff that kind of goes on in your day to day, all the game planning, the classroom hours on field. Are you just absolutely exhausted right now after that season, after the playoffs, preseason camp? I mean, it's so much.
Yeah, it is an absolute grind. And it's a marathon for sure, especially if year after year after year, you're having these 20 game seasons. I mean, what goes into the preparation just for one game and then to do it again and then and ride, because it is an emotional roller coaster and you've got to even it out. But I mean, the highs are so high and to lose a game is such a crushing blow. So yeah, it's exhausting, and not to, we literally don't get much sleep because it takes what it takes. I liken it to, imagine if you worked at a Fortune 500 company and you were going to put on a symposium, you're going to have a clinic, you're going to bring in people, and you were going to do breakout sessions, and you were going to put up PowerPoints, and you were going to, do a mock this or mock that. I mean, you would spend a month preparing that, and then you bring all these people in. We do that every single night. And then the next day, I mean, here come the PowerPoints. Okay, here come the breakout sessions. Here comes the walkthrough. Then the scripted practice. We drew all the defenses. We gave great thought as to what we were going to do. Now I'm not going to run that play because we need to make sure we get them this look. Anyway, a lot goes into it, and there's only so many hours in the day. So, to put that symposium on every single day means you're not going to get much sleep. So we catch up on it, though, in the off season. So I've already had a week off. I'm about to have another spring break here. We put in much more normal hours, more 9 to 5 in the off season, take our weekends. Coach does a great job of making sure we get charged up and ready for the next year.
Yeah, but having said that, I mean, with all the years of Super Bowl berths here, not only does your season get extended, but your off season gets cut short. Because now you're playing deep into the playoffs while the rest of the NFLs, they're just chilling on the couch at home. Do you feel like it's almost giving you guys more of an uphill battle where it's just year after year, it's primetime games, Thursday night, Monday night, you're getting back at 4 a.m. and then just longer season, shorter off season, then do it all over again. It makes it even more remarkable to me that you guys repeat that, and don't just get burnt out. But does some of the, when you're successful, you're going to be put in the primetime slots, you're going to have the longer season because you're in the playoffs. Has it made it harder?
You could make that case, but it also, I mean, once you taste that, I mean, you want it so bad. And you think you want it when you haven't tasted it, you haven't been there. But once you, um, you know, feel confetti raining down on you, once you accept the ring and go to the parade, I mean, all I want is to experience that again. Um, and there's no greater feeling in sport. Um, so yeah, are we tired? Does it cut into our off season? Yeah, it's a good problem to have. And there's thousands of coaches that wish they had that problem. And Coach Reid always says, look, man, we'll play anyone, anytime, anywhere. I don't care if it's a CVS parking lot. And so that's the mentality. Be like, hey, 30 below zero. Yeah, good. Bring it on. Um, uh, we got to play on Christmas Day. Bring it on. Great. Monday night followed by, a Saturday game. Bring it on. So it doesn't matter. And so I don't know. You start to kind of take pride in the fact that yeah, we'll take on the tough jobs, and we're going to find a way to win anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you asked any NFL fan around the league, they'd say it has nothing to do with any of that. It's all just the refs helping you guys out, right? I mean, and you're Taylor Swift. Um, do you guys hear that noise? I mean, inevitably you have success. Here come the haters. It was the same with the Patriots. But I mean, this year it's been louder than ever. Just the nonsense narrative of the refs in helping the Chiefs. And do you guys hear that? Do you have to address that with the team at all?
We definitely do not address it with the team outside, other than Coach Reid, just the way he approaches things. Like, yeah, he goes, they can say all want. Here's what's real, and just bring it back to here's what's real. We got a job to do today. Let's focus on that. And so, do we hear it? I mean, it's hard not to. I don't really read the papers. I call it the papers. I don't really read the headlines, the news, but they cross your desk. You see it one way or another. You hear the rumblings, but I just kind of try to tune it out and focus in on the here and now. What can I control? Um, it is an interesting evolution of the sport. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword. As the NFL's gained more popularity, you know, the stakes are higher. Betting's now involved. More and more people have access to it, and for different reasons. And so emotions are high. Everybody's a reporter with, their online reporting and whatnot. So there's, 10 times the coverage, probably more than that, than when I was a player. But that also means that, it's a more profitable league, not only for the owners, but then it trickles down to the eventually players and coaches. And so it's a good problem to have. Budget, like anything, you got to tune out the outside noise and keep it real. Like, here's what's real. We got a tough defense we got to prepare for, and here's what we got to do to beat these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And, I think fans, people, I mean, even myself included, we just watch you guys winning year after year in the Super Bowl year after year, and it starts to look just like so routine and so casual. I remember the first time you guys were in the Super Bowl, we're so excited. It's like, oh, like we'll quit our jobs to go there. We'll get to the game on horseback. And now the fifth Super Bowl, it's like, I don't know if I can make this one. Like we had planned some friends that night. It's just become such like a routine, casual thing. But that's not true. Like everyone, nobody knows what goes into this. And I always tell people, you don't understand how much goes into every single season, every single game, every single meeting. Can you walk us through kind of, and I know there's a lot, just 50,000 foot view of a typical in-season week, what your week looks like as a coach?
So it is probably similar, around the NFL in terms of how this is done. But for example, what we do is we review a game. We played on Sunday. We're going to review that, grade our guys, get together as a staff, talk about it, and kind of put that to bed. And we'll have that done by about, say, noon. So now it's Monday at noon, and you've got to get ready for the next opponent. Well, a bunch of us, not the coordinator, not the head coach, would have already been working ahead. The coordinator can't do that. Can't really work ahead because it would cloud his mind for the game you just called. But, the rest of us can kind of be working ahead, laying some of the groundwork. And then the rest of Monday is spent on, okay, we're going to dive into this defense. I got to learn this defense. And then our defense has to learn their offense because I got to explain this to our guys on Wednesday. And then by that night, a game plan is going to start to take form. So we'll each have different areas. And as an offensive line coach, I will be heavily involved with putting together the run plan. And I'll communicate with other coaches about that. And then our passing guys, receivers coach, quarterback coach, head coach, they're getting their ideas together for the passing game. And then sometime Tuesday morning, that all gets married together. And by now, the quarterbacks are coming in on Tuesday. The players are coming in. We're going to review Sunday's game with them. They had Monday off. Maybe they had to be in for treatment. And then we're going to review that game with them, make the coaching points, and then just give them a little sneak preview of the next opponent. And so we haven't put the game plan fully together by that point, but we've got it well underway. And then the rest of that day is ironing out that game plan. And then, making our teach tapes, making our PowerPoints, scripting the next day's practice. Because Wednesday, man, we're hitting the ground running with a blitz meeting and then an installation and then a walkthrough and then a practice and then a post-practice meeting. And we're game planning now situations, short yardage, goal line, red zone, backed up 4 minute. So that goes on the rest of the week. And then we teach that the next day. By Friday, you're kind of, everything's in, everything's done. You're ramping down practice for the players. You're starting to, bring their legs back, get them, mentally ready. They've had a dress rehearsal type practice. And in terms of the game plan, the hay's in the barn. And now it's just another quick review on Saturday and meetings. We get a little more rest on Friday afternoon. Fridays in the NFL are kind of sacred for coaches, assuming you had a Sunday game. We're out Friday afternoon, and so I'm able to, if you've got kids playing high school football, go to your high school game, and um, so we look forward to the end of the week, and then you play the game, and then you do it all over again, hopefully 20 times.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much goes into just playing one single game. How do you handle the wins and losses? Like, how you put in so much effort during the week, and then, you lose a game. It's like all of that work down the drain. Like, how do you handle that?
Well, I remember when I was a player, I was playing for the Seattle Seahawks, and I had a bad play, a really bad play. And we were playing Monday night, and I gave up a sack to Lawrence Taylor, Hall of Fame player, and it was a sack and a target touchdown. And a target. And so sack fumble touchdown on Monday night. All of my friends and family would have seen that. And I was in the dumper, and my guard who played next to me, Edwin Bailey, said, "Hey man, that stuff happens. Just hope you play long enough that it happens to you a few more times." And if you play sports, if you get in any arena, competitive arena, losses are part of it. And so I intellectually know that. It doesn't make it easier to accept it. You don't want to ever accept a loss. It's not acceptable. Um, we're competitors, but it is a part of the game. And so knowing how to lose, how to react, grow from, learn from, be a good sport, these are important lessons. Um, and, I learned it, they say losing builds character. So I built a lot of character early out of my career, both as a player and as a coach. Um, and so, I understand it's part of it, but I also, uh, you know, it makes winning that much sweeter. And so it's a great profession, whether you're a player or a coach in that regard. In that, hey man, we get our report card, we get our results once a week. And then about 2 days into the next game plan, that thing's already gone. And you got to let it go. And the only cure for, a crap feeling after a bad loss is to go out and get a win. Man, it erases everything because there's no better feeling than a win.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, early on in your career, obviously there were some tough years in Jacksonville. And luckily this is not something you've had to face here in many years, but when you're losing repeatedly, and it's just loss after loss after loss, how does a team, a coaching staff, how do you handle that? Like, how do you find the right things to continue to say to the guys week after week? This past year with Troy, we started off a lot of losses, a lot of consecutive losses. And the challenge was like, how do we keep these guys in it? How do we sort of refresh the message so it doesn't just sound, we're not just repeating the same thing over and over and then it's not working. In some of your tougher years, years past, how does a team go about handling that?
Well, it could look different, I suppose, for different people. But for me, I only know one way. And, I play for a guy named Chuck Knox, who is a great football coach. he was the head coach of the Seahawks. He at the time, and may still be, was the coach that had won a division championship in the AFC West. He had won it in the AFC East, and he had won it in the NFC West. And he was the only head coach that had won division championships in 3 different divisions. He's a great football coach with an O-line background. And Chuck would always say, working will, wishing won't. And so the only thing that I know is if you believe in what you're doing, this is the right way to block this. These are the right fundamentals to teach. This is, I've done the work here. I know this defense. So you believe in what you're doing. You just put your nose to the grindstone and go back to work. Sometimes things need to change. You can't just do the same things over and over and expect different results. But if you believe in what you're doing, I mean, sometimes the answer is, man, you got to find better players. Sometimes the answer is you got to find better coaches. And so that, changes occur. I don't always think that's the case, but change can be, good. Sometimes just for the sake of change, you can breathe new life into a situation. But when that's not an option, I mean, you're in the throes of a, 2-10 season, and you've got another game to prepare for, and you just go to work. And then, hey man, we installed this thing on Wednesday, and on Thursday, by Friday, we're like, okay, this is a great plan. We've put in great practices. All these games come down to one score. I mean, every game is closer than ever in the history of the league. Anybody can beat anybody. You start to believe, hey man, we're going to win this game. And you just approach it like that and like control the controls. And there's no substitute for just doing the work.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, luckily, like we said, it's not something that you or the Chiefs have had to deal with ever since you've been there, really. I mean, ever since, and we'll get into the origin stories of you and Coach Reid and the Chiefs here in a minute. One question I had though, coming off the Super Bowl, and I was always curious about this, comparing college to the NFL. So in college, we play your bowl game, then there's a week or 2 off, and then the entire team comes back together. And there's that first team meeting, kind of debrief the year, debrief the bowl game, talk about, okay, here's how we're moving forward. And then we get right into winter training, teams back together, and we kind of okay, now it's the beginning of the new year. Whereas in the NFL, it's kind of like, okay, you play your last game and then guys kind of scatter. And then now guys are gone for weeks and months, and you don't have to be back until OTAs. And there's kind of that big lag period when you're bringing in free agents in the background, and there's the draft. I've always wondered, do you get an opportunity to kind of debrief the season, debrief the Super Bowl? When do you get an opportunity to kind of, okay, reestablish the team? Here's what we're doing. Here's the plan moving forward. Do you have to wait all the way until April, all the way until training camp to really kind of start the new 2025 Chiefs?
Yes, with the players. Literally, they get away and, like you say, scatter. We'll have our injured guys around, not doing anything with the coaches. We may pass them in the hallways, but they're down there doing rehab. But other than that, they're off training on their own, oftentimes at warmer locations. We as coaches debrief. I mean, we pour over this stuff and we do a systems analysis, and we just began that process today, in fact, of going through. We will go through every play of the season. We will comb through it, turn it upside down in every which way to make sure, hey, this is good. Here's what we can do better. This has got to go. We need to grow in this area. These are fundamentals we've got to get better at as a team. And we form a plan for how do we attack 2025. And it's based on, it'll take us a couple months to do all this. We spend a half day doing that. We spend a half day doing free agency and draft evaluations. And so until we get our players mid-April, we'll be pouring through this systems analysis and kind of forming our plan for 2025. Then when we get the players, there's not a lot of talk about last year.
Right.
Um, Definitely not in my room. I mean, there's no looking back. We're looking forward. Now we'll talk about, uh, stuff we did well. And it's interesting to me. For example, I'm in charge of the run game. Um, from year to year, just because we were good at something last year doesn't mean we're going to be good at it next year. In fact, oftentimes we're not. Our gun run game was average, and our dot run game, which we don't do a whole lot of, was out of sight. Man, we need to do more of that. And then we followed up with a year where it was terrible. Or gap schemes were fantastic, and inside zone was so-so. Well, the next year it might be inside zone. So every year is different, and it's hard to pinpoint as to why. But I mean, players change. The techniques that I teach evolve slowly over time, with great thought and trial and error. But we'll start off phase one, and we will start from scratch and teach these guys how to get in the stance, what kind of footwork to take. And we just, football is one of those sports, as you know, it's not like riding a bike. I mean, you forget this stuff. And if you don't do it every day, the first day out there, first practice, these guys are all going to be flopping around, bad balance, and moving nothing like they're going to move even after a week of practice. So we start fresh with them, and they're kind of, their slate is wiped clean, and then we just start from square one, come mid-April.
Yeah, it's the same with us as strength coaches, and then we get the guys back. It's like they've completely forgotten how to squat and clean and all that. So we got to start. The first week's kind of square one. Rebuilding technique and all that stuff. So, let me ask you this: kind of getting into the origins of the dynasty that the Chiefs now are. So you joined Andy Reid. It was both of your guys' first year in Kansas City. Did you immediately know there was something special there once you guys started working together, working with the team? Were there any growing pains? What was it like getting the ball rolling year one?
I would say no, I didn't know that we were going to be building something super special. I mean, that was the goal, that was the aim. And I was excited to work with Coach Reid. And I was excited to have a job. I had just, lost my job in Jacksonville. And so I was excited to be working, but I was also excited to be working in a great football town. It's tough to beat the atmosphere at Arrowhead. The tailgating is unbelievable. The history, great ownership. And so I was really psyched about that. And then I didn't know Coach Reid, but man, every single interaction I had with him just was like, wow, this guy's awesome. He's going to be great to work with. For example, he's an O-line coach in his background. He played O-line at BYU, started off as an O-line coach before he moved into the quarterback room, tight end room, and then quarterback room. And I thought, ooh, that could be tough, right? He might be peering over my shoulder. He might be micromanaging. Is he going to be that type? No, he's not that type. He's not. He trusts his coaches. He lets them go, and builds a great atmosphere for all of his coaches to thrive and get work done, and to bring our own personality to the mix. And so it was a great blend. I loved the guys that I was working with. It was a completely different feeling. I loved my time in Jacksonville. Loved those guys. This was new, so it was new and exciting. New people, new everything. So I would say, and I was excited about. We just acquired Alex Smith, the quarterback,
Right.
San Francisco. Man, what a class act and a pro's pro. So I was excited about our quarterback situation. I had a very good room of O-linemen, Brandon Albert, some good young interior players, Rodney Hudson. And then we had the first pick in the draft where we picked Eric Fisher. So I had a young, talented guy to work with. So there was a lot to be excited about in there.
Yeah, and then we had Jamal Charles and Dwayne Bowe and Tom Ali and Justin Houston, some of those old studs of years past. I think people kind of forget that, they look at the Chiefs dynasty, they associate it all with Patrick Mahomes, and of course all the Super Bowls have been won with Pat Mahomes. But I mean, you guys inherited the last place team in the NFL and immediately hit the ground running and started winning and put together multiple winning seasons, playoff berths with Alex Smith. I mean, you guys were, what was your guys' record at that first year?
Well, we started off 9-0.
That's right.
Yeah. I think we ended up 10-6. Maybe it was 11-5. Went to the playoffs, and we've been to the playoffs every year except for our second year, 2014. And so we've had great success, but and I think this is probably the case in building a championship team. I mean, it takes some time. You've got to kind of break a barrier. Hey, let's get to the playoffs. Hey, let's win a playoff game. When we beat Houston in Houston in 2015, it was the first time the Chiefs had won a playoff game in a long time. I forget how many years. So we broke that, barrier. Then the next year we went a little further. We, lost an AFC championship game before we won an AFC championship game. So, once you accomplish something, I remember losing an AFC championship game by a whisker. I mean, we had a guy offsides, otherwise we win the game and go to the Super Bowl. And I thought to myself, man, this was so hard to get here. Would have been my first Super Bowl. I don't know if we can ever get back here. I mean, it just so much goes into it, so much luck. I mean, guys have to stay healthy. But what I didn't realize is once you get there, you know what it takes. I mean, you're kind of of that mindset. In some ways, it makes it easier. You know what it looks like, and you believe. We're going to win the close game. We're going to make the play when we have to make it. We're going to win this game. You believe it, and then you make it happen.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm still, most Chief fans have not forgiven D Ford for jumping off sides in that AFC championship game. I know I still haven't. Uh, but the year you guys finally broke through and won the thing, that year, was there a sense at some point that, oh wow, this might be the year?
No, I would not say that. I remember thinking, okay, now, and I think we got a bye that year. We won the championship game. I think two teams were getting a bye, and I think we had gotten a bye, which helped, reduce the physical toll on our players. And going into that game against San Francisco, I mean, as you remember, that they had a great defense. They had a great running game on offense. I mean, I think they may have been favored in that game, um, but it was close. It could go either way, and I just remember thinking, well, I sure hope I know we can win this game, and we're going to give it our best shot here. But I can't imagine how that would feel to lose this game with all it took to get here. It wasn't until, we score in a 4-minute drive, with a long run off the left side. We called 95 week, and Williams busted that thing out and, scores a long touchdown. And at that moment, it hit home like, oh my God, we just won the Super Bowl. And before that, I mean, I hoped, I prayed, we worked, but I didn't know. No, it's never over till it's over. But it wasn't until that moment that I knew it and believed it.
Yeah. And can you put into words what that feeling is like, winning the Super Bowl?
Yes, a combination.
What it means to you?
Yeah, it's a combination of elation and utter relief.
Yeah.
You know, because you're holding your breath, you're concentrating so hard for weeks and months on end. you can't let your guard down, even for a moment and slip up. And, um, you know, it's the highest of high, but like I say, combined with relief. So it's a weird feeling. Um, but it's one that is unmatched in my life. And I'm absolutely dying and starving hungry to experience it again.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know what you mean with the relief. I just talked to a guy named Tyler Hansbrough on this podcast. He's one of the greatest UNC basketball players of all time, and they won the national championship in 2008. And I asked him, what was that like when you won the national championship your senior year? And the word he used was relief. You put so much into that, and finally there, and it could slip out of your fingers, and just to finally secure that win. I mean, it's got to be just an immense relief and flood of emotions, and you've gotten to experience that 3 times now. What's it like losing that game?
Yeah. It's crushing because you can feel it slipping away. The two times we've lost it, um, we lost badly. And so you could feel the game change. And then you're hoping and fighting and scratching and clawing to flip that script and get it, going back in the right direction. But you could feel it turning and slipping away and then finally it gets to a point where it's, uh, you know, beyond recovery. It's a combination of emotions, from, um, disappointment to, um, on some level, embarrassment. Here we are on the biggest stage. Everybody's watching this. It's going to be scrutinized. And this is our resume. What we're putting out on the field. This is our resume, whether you're a player or a coach. And so it hurts. And, it stings. It's a wake up call. It's all these things. It's part of sport. I mean, there's a winner, there's a loser. Um, but it's particularly tough, when so much has gone into it. Um, you know, what you're missing out on. Um, uh, there's no guarantee you ever get back there. I mean, it's a great honor just to compete in that thing. Um, but it's a tough thing to deal with a loss. But you know, it's like, hey man, again, I said it earlier. It's a part of sport. It's a part of this game. So what are you going to do about it? All right, hey, working well, wishing won't. So we take a little bit of rest. We're gonna pour through this thing, learn from it best we can, and then put our nose back to that grindstone and see if we can't get back and get a win next year.
When you're coaching in those games, are you sort of tunnel vision with the offense and the offensive line, or do you have an awareness of the dynamics of the defense and the special teams and the flow of the game? And are you aware of all that stuff going on, or like I said, are you kind of just it's you and the O line, you and the offense?
Um, I would say it's more that. You've absolutely got to have tunnel vision and be locked in. I mean, for me, I've got to be, watching my guys, making sure um, I can help them, uh, if they need it. But one of my big jobs is to be ready with, runs in certain situations. And so I've got to be absolutely tunnel vision on that. But part of that is you have to have an awareness of the game and where, what's happening in this game. So I'm not watching defense play, but I'm keeping close tabs on, you know, what's the personality of this game? Uh, what's the real situation here? And where are we at in this game? So that factors into the tunnel vision.
Got it. Can you pinpoint any common denominators between the teams that won the Super Bowl, the teams that you and the Chiefs were part of that won the thing? Can you identify any distinguishing variables between those years and the years you didn't win the Super Bowl, or the years that you lost in the playoffs?
Yeah, some common denominators are usually the team has a really good quarterback. Um,
Yeah.
and usually the team has a really good defense. And I would say generally the teams that are playing in the playoffs and making it deep into the playoffs have the best O&D lines. Um, and so there's good line play going on. Um, Good quarterback play, outstanding defense, and probably most importantly is just a belief, um, that you're gonna win. That there, it goes back to chemistry, but when you've got the right chemistry, the right leadership, there's a belief, that we're gonna make this happen, or even if you experience a dip or hey man, we're down 2 scores. How are we going to get out of this? Don't worry, we're going to make it happen. It's going to start with this drive right here. We're going to get a score right here, and then flip this thing. So good leadership, good chemistry.
But I guess I mean more specifically, like, okay, so the Patrick Mahomes led Chiefs have both won the Super Bowl and lost the Super Bowl and lost the AFC Championship, won it. Looking back on these years, like, was there a little something that was different between the year you won it versus the year you didn't? Even though both times it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid, it's a lot of the same infrastructure but different result, or is it a matter of the last game it just bounced one way or the other?
Um, you know, it's it's a good question, and that I don't have the answer to, but I would say, um, you know, we've got to coach a good game. We've got to give our guys a good plan, no question. But assuming, that happens, you got two teams that have a good plan and good coaching. Now somebody's got to make a play. And, you know, on a particular day, maybe it was, hey man, the Chiefs made the plays when they had to be made. And then, or they didn't. In our game against Philadelphia, man, I mean, you got to give them credit. They made plays. They made plays all day long. Um, they made the routine plays routinely. They made big plays. They controlled the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively. So, again, the line play, I think it really gets magnified in these big tight games. Um, and if the line's winning the day, generally that's when the skill guys are going to make the plays. That's when you're going to come up with interceptions. You're going to make a sack. So, you know, I always focus on what can I control? What part of the game am I most involved with? It's the line play. And, on that day that we won, the line play, uh, you know, won the day. And those games that we lost, our line didn't win the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think the casual fans don't understand how crucial to the game as a whole the line of scrimmage is and how much it just affects everything. And the best teams often have a dominant line of scrimmage. Now talking about Patrick Mahomes, I'm sure it's hard to put into words, but in your opinion, what makes him great? Just being around him as a coach. Did you know early on he was going to be something special, have greatness in him? Talk about Mahomes a little bit.
Uh, I think what makes him great is ultimately his fire to compete. I mean, there is nobody more competitive than him. A lot of guys, people have probably seen, the specials on Michael Jordan and what kind of a competitor he was. I mean, Pat Mahomes is that kind of a competitor. He's so rare in that regard. And then on top of that, I mean, he's a sick talent. He's got a sick arm talent and unbelievable vision. but he doesn't just compete on the football field. I mean, he competes at everything. And so, take for example, how a big part of our quarterback's job is to identify pressures, blitzes, and direct the protection. Some teams do that with their center. We do it with our quarterback. And that's an area, that's a part of the game that Patrick had to learn. He had to learn NFL blitzes, and they're always evolving and changing and becoming more exotic. So he's had to learn that and attack it. He's way better at it now than he was when he was a rookie. I mean, but it was one of those things when he was a rookie, and this was a little bit new to him. He said, well, he didn't just say, I'm going to get good at this. He said, I'm going to become the best there is in the world at this. And he's unbelievable. I mean, what he can see and what he does in directing protection is phenomenal. So he competes at that. If you heard one of our plays called, I mean, sometimes these plays are 15 and 20 words long that a quarterback has to spit out in the huddle.
Right.
And a lot of quarterbacks have a wristband, and I think Pat has a wristband, but he doesn't ever use it. And he memorizes, he knows the plays. And so I remember going into a game and we were losing our communication frequently, and he was not as strong on, the verbiage to spit out a play as he had wanted to be. And after that, he said, that's never happening again. And he studies it like crazy. And so, sometimes the play's going into him and they shut off the communicator, or, Wi-Fi in the stadium goes out, what have you. And then he heard one fraction of it, and then he has to spit out this 17-word play and get everybody lined up and identify the defense. I mean, that took hours and hours and hours of work. He rehearses in front of a mirror. So a relentless work ethic. He does so much that people aren't even aware of preparing for a game. And then, just the crazy talent. Was it apparent, when he walked through the doors? No, I mean, I saw him make some crazy throws in practice. I was like, wow, I had seen the highlights. So, oh, wow. But can he call a play in the huddle? Can he identify a blitz? I was getting better at that. Boy, he's really getting better quickly at that. Man, he's attacking that. He's awesome at that. I mean, it was once he started playing, and then the energy that he brings in the huddle. I mean, you've been in a huddle with a few different quarterbacks. I always judge quarterbacks by how they handled that huddle. I could tell right off this guy's great or not so great by how he handled the huddle. And Pat's one of those guys. Boom, he's in there. He's got everybody, right there in the palm of his hands. I mean, he's the general out there.
What would an example be for a quarterback who doesn't have that hold on the huddle? What might that look like?
Well, we touched on it earlier, how players know.
Yeah.
And they know who's put the work in. What it looks like is a guy who is unsure, spitting out a play, unsure about the alignments. You could just hear it in his voice. Maybe he was unclear, like, what was the cadence? What did he say it's on? He mumbled and trailed off at the end. And then everybody in the stadium can see how he's playing. But the players know, they can sense it in the huddle when, the look in his eye.
Yeah.
Does he got, we all want to be around people that, I like to say it as, he's got this. Okay, good. He's got this.
Right.
And you're around people, you're like, I don't know if he's got this. You see that? You don't want that guy being quarterback.
Did the team, the locker room, did everyone pretty unanimously and quickly buy into Pat when he took over, when Alex Smith moved on?
Absolutely. I mean, and guys loved Alex and respected Alex, and he was our guy, into those playoffs. And then I think when Pat took over the next year, I think Alex had moved on. But yeah, 100%. We got a glimpse. I think it was a game we rested Alex and some of our starters up in Denver before we headed into the playoffs. And we won that game, resting our starters with Patrick at the helm. And so that was the first time we saw him play a game start to finish. And there was a lot of excitement about how he had, in a very reduced, simple game plan, but everybody was impressed with how he handled that and excited about the future with him.
Yeah.
And no knock on Alex, man. I have great respect and love for that guy.
Yeah, yeah. I think Chiefs Kingdom as a whole does. It was a lot of fun watching you guys with Alex Smith leading. I remember that first game that Pat played and watching him and just kind of knowing that, okay, the future looks pretty bright for the Chiefs moving forward. But we're getting close to time here. I've got one more question for you, and this is something that kind of touched us as strength coaches a little bit. In college, things are changing so much. We're getting into this NIL era, this transfer portal era where players are bouncing from team to team to team. And we often talk to strength coaches, is this transfer portal situation, is it harming player development? As strength coaches, we might get a guy for 9 months and then he transfers, goes to a different program. Then he's there for 9 months, transfers to a different program. He's not in one strength and conditioning program for longer than a few months before he's gone. He never gets to develop within one system. And in many of our opinion, it's harming player development. Do you see that at all at this point with rookies coming out of college? Are you seeing any difference in the rookies coming out of this NIL transfer portal era compared to years past?
Um, I I think you're right. I think it will affect it. I think it's probably early enough in the. I mean, people are still trying to figure this NIL thing, and it still feels relatively new. I mean, our rookies for the past several years. How long has it been going now? The portal, couple, 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, so I suppose our last few batches of rookies, it is weird I interviewed a guy today, and I'm thinking he's from one school, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I was only there 1 year. I played 2 years or 3 years at this other school," and I was like, "Oh, tell me about that experience." And that is now the norm. When it used to be, started off with grad transfer. Oh, this guy was a grad transfer, but now there's the portal, and it's almost. I mean, it's more than 50% of the guys started at one place, finished it at another. I don't know if we've seen the effects yet on it stagnating their development. In some cases, I mean, one thing I've noticed is, you know, we drafted a center last year from Penn State. He had been an Ivy League player. I think having changed schools helped him. He got more coaching. I'm not necessarily saying better coaching, but he got more coaching. Um, he got an opportunity to play big time football. Um, and we probably view him through a different lens, and he probably views himself through a different lens, and therefore plays with more confidence. So I think it can be a positive thing uh, to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, especially for those players like him who started the smaller program and then they're able to have put together some great seasons and transfer on to a bigger program, go against better competition and get a little bit more diversity of coaching or maybe a better strength and conditioning program, whatever it is. And some players they're just in the wrong situation and getting a change for them is legitimately what they need. But then there are these players who it's just, oh, they get somewhere, they don't have the starting spot guaranteed on day one, so they leave, or the coaches are mean to them, so they transfer again, and it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I mean, in those cases, I definitely think it's doing the player no favor. Those guys typically aren't going to make it. I mean, the guys who make it, um, they, it's so few and far between that end up making it onto a 53 or an NFL roster period. But guys who look for the easy way out, or are used to, oh, this is hard, I'm going to move on. And, they're not going to last long or even make it in the first place. That's how they operate. They're probably not going to make it.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Dad, I know your free time is few and far between, and you've been very gracious with your time tonight. Are you putting any meat on the grill tonight on the smoker?
No, I did have leftovers. I did a Wagyu brisket point the other day as 4.5 pounds, and right now I'm a bachelor here for a little while longer. So as you know, your mom's in law school, so it's gonna be a while till I have her home. So anyway, I cooked this 4.5 pound slab of meat, and I've been eating leftovers here for a few days. I was eating pretty good though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you think do you and Coach Reid and the Chiefs have it in you? Have the juice for another Super Bowl run in 2025, 2026?
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's unbelievable the energy that Coach Reid has. I mean, I'm no spring chicken anymore, and I think he's gotten me by almost a decade. And this guy is hungry, and excited to get started here. So he's a fun guy. In this day and age where they're hiring 35-year-old head coaches, I mean, nobody connects with players better than Coach Reid does. So he's fun to work for.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to watch it. Now, this is usually the point of the podcast where I'd give my guests the opportunity to plug their social media, their website, their company, whatever. But I know you don't have any of that. So, to my audience, you can catch Coach Heck on national TV on Sundays. Uh, once football season gets rolling, or on whatever streaming platform they're going to have all the primetime games on, because the Chiefs will be in many of them. So, Dad, thanks so much for doing this. Guys, for the audience, stay tuned. Episodes of the podcast coming out every Tuesday. You can follow me on Instagram, John Heck at What the Heck 71 for daily training, nutrition content, all that stuff. Follow the YouTube channel. We'll be putting out more and more content. But Coach Heck, Dad, thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. Absolute pleasure. Great job.
All right, guys, we'll catch you next time.